It's amazing how dynamic the airline world always seems to be. Always something shifting.
Absolutely. Never a dull moment. You see these big fleet expansions, surprising new routes popping up.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to dive into today. We've got some really interesting reports.
Yeah, we've been looking at some recent pieces that show some pretty significant strategic plays happening right now.
Right. We've got Asian Aviation covering Etihad's huge fleet plans, and also Qantas. They've got new Auckland flights and a fancy new lounge in Adelaide.
Mm-hmm. And then there's a Cherry Aviation report on Tway Air, the South Korean low-cost carrier.
Oh, yeah. What are they up to?
Making a big jump, actually, launching their first route into North America, Vancouver.
Wow. Okay, so for this deep dive, the idea is to what sort of get under the skin of these moves.
Exactly. What's the strategy here? What does it tell us about these specific airlines? And, maybe what wider trends are we seeing in air travel?
Okay, let's kick off with Etihad then. Doubling the fleet by 2030. That sounds incredibly ambitious.
It really is. And this recent Boeing order, it's a key part of that. We're talking 28 wide-body jets.
Wide body's so long-haul focused.
Yeah, a mix of the 787 Dreamliner and the newer 777X. They're slated to start arriving from 2028.
Okay, so still a few years out.
Right. And they've specified GE engines for them, too.
And the report suggests it's not just about, having more planes. It's tied to specific goals.
Definitely. They're talking about growth in connectivity, more routes, more options for you, plus operational efficiency, and importantly, boosting the guest experience.
Right. And how do these particular planes, the 787 and 777X, help with that?
Well, both are known for being much more fuel efficient. That helps the bottom line, obviously makes them more efficient. But it could also mean they can run certain routes more economically, maybe even, offer better fares eventually.
Interesting. Their CEO, Antonaldo Neves, he mentioned something about careful management since 2023.
Yeah, he stressed that this isn't just random growth. It's planned, managed expansion, aligning with what they see as future demand and their long-term network plans.
It sounds very methodical. The article said they're working on a plan out to 2035.
That's right. A really long-term roadmap. And this Boeing order is a cornerstone of that. You need that kind of vision in this business.
Absolutely. But doubling a fleet, that can't be without risks, surely?
Mm.
What are the big challenges you see there?
Oh, plenty. I mean, first, there's just the sheer cost and financing. Then integrating all those new aircraft, training crews, maintenance.
Right.
And crucially, making sure passenger demand actually keeps pace with all that new capacity. Global events, economic shifts, anything could throw a wrench in the works.
Good points. And this also connects back to Abu Dhabi's broader strategy, doesn't it? Investing in aviation.
Exactly. Nev's pointed that out too. Etihad's growth is seen as an enabler for the whole region: connectivity, tourism, trade, economic opportunity in the UAE and beyond. It's bigger than just the airline.
Okay, fascinating stuff with Etihad. Let's hop over to Australia and New Zealand now. Qantas has news for Adelaide.
Yes, big news for South Australia. They're launching flights between Adelaide and Auckland starting October 2025.
And that's significant because
It marks Qantas bringing back non-stop international flying from Adelaide. That's a huge convenience boost for people there.
definitely saves a connection.
Yeah.
And it's not just about Auckland itself, is it? There's a connection benefit too.
Right. The report highlights seamless connections, particularly to their New York service via Auckland, that's QF3. It's a smart integration with their existing network.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And they're adding a fair bit of capacity.
Over 30,000 seats a year between the cities on this seasonal route. That's quite substantial. Good news for inbound tourism to South Australia, too.
Yeah, you'd think so. But wait, there was more for Adelaide, right? Something about a lounge.
That's right, a double whammy. They're opening their first domestic business lounge in Adelaide around the same time.
Ah, domestic business. Okay. And it sounds like they're putting some effort into it.
Very much so. They're really leaning into the local thing, a market kitchen concept inspired by the Adelaide Central Market. Dishes by Neil Perry, snacks from Maggie Beer.
Wow, big local names.
Yeah, trying to give it a real South Australian flavor. Apparently, customer feedback was a big driver in the design.
Always good to hear. Their CEO International, Cam Wallace, he framed it as a win-win, right? The flight and the lounge.
Yeah, he highlighted the direct international link plus that premium pre-flight experience, making the whole journey better.
And the local government seems pleased.
Oh, definitely. The premier, Peter Malinauskas, welcomed it, strengthening ties with NZ, that New York link. He's hoping it signals more international growth for Adelaide from Qantas down the line.
Fingers crossed for them. And the tourism minister.
Zoe Beddison. She focused on accessibility for New Zealanders, a key market, mentioning tourism spending from NZ is already up, so building on existing ties.
And the airport itself is on board, too.
Yep. Adelaide Airport's MD, Brenton Cox, sounded excited about Qantas International returning and the lounge showcasing local produce. It's their own focus.
It really feels like a joined-up effort there. The report mentioned this lounge completes a whole precinct for Qantas at the airport.
It does. Shows ongoing investment in their lounge network globally and just generally upping the customer experience.
And the design inspiration sounds quite specific, too.
Yeah, they worked with architects to bring in elements of the Botanic Gardens, the Central Markets, even Kangaroo Island's Flinders Chase National Park. It's about creating that sense of place.
Nice touch. Okay, so Qantas focusing on network and ground experience. Let's jump across the Pacific again. Tway Air to Vancouver. Tell me more.
Yeah, this one's quite a headline. Tway Air, remember, the South Korean low-cost carrier launching Seoul Incheon to Vancouver from July next year.
Low cost on a long-haul Pacific route. That's interesting.
It is, and they'll be the only LCC on that route. Plus, it's their first ever destination in North America.
That's bold. How often will they fly?
4 times a week, round trip. They'll be using their Airbus A330-300s.
Okay. And Tway's been growing quite a bit, generally.
Massively. Started mainly domestic, now they fly to 42 airports in 21 countries, including, surprisingly, 5 places in Europe.
Wow. Europe, too. Didn't they get some help with that expansion? Something about Korean Air.
They did, yes. As part of the conditions for the Korean Air-Asiana merger, Korean Air provided Taiwan with some aircraft, crews, ground support for those European routes.
Oh, okay. But this Vancouver route is different.
Totally different. The report makes it clear this is purely Taiwan's own commercial venture, standalone.
Got it. So they're going head-to-head with established players.
Directly. Air Canada and Korean Air both fly Seoul-Vancouver daily already, using 787s, so it's not an empty market.
No kidding. How will an LCC compete on a route like that, besides just price? What else do they need?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? They'll have to be super lean operationally to keep fares low over that distance.
Yep.
Maybe target specific segments, price-sensitive travelers, students, people visiting family who might skip the extras for a lower ticket price. Maybe some clever partnerships or add-on deals.
Could be. Are they adding much capacity?
A significant amount. The numbers show nearly 2,800 seats per week. Over their initial filing period, that adds up to over 40,000 seats.
Wow, that's a lot of extra seats on that route. It'll be really interesting to see how Air Canada and Korean Air react.
Absolutely. It could shake things up.
Okay, so we've looked at Etihad's long-term fleet strategy, Qantas boosting Adelaide's connections and ground experience, and Tway Air making this bold LCC move into North America. If we pull it all together, what's the common thread?
I think the biggest takeaway is this theme of proactive strategic growth. Despite all the challenges in aviation, these airlines are making big bets on the future. They're adapting.
Yeah, for Etihad, it's clearly that long-term vision, building the fleet and network for anticipated demand years down the line.
Exactly. With Qantas and Adelaide, you see that dual strategy growing the international network while also really focusing on making the experience better on the ground with that lounge.
Right, covering both bases.
And Tway Air. That's maybe the most disruptive move. Pushing the low-cost model further into long-haul, directly challenging the legacy carriers. You wonder if other LCCs are watching closely.
Yeah, could we see more of that? What does all this suggest for, the future of flying for passengers?
Well, collectively, it points towards more connectivity options. Hopefully, airlines are expanding where they fly. There's also that continued focus on customer experience in the air, yes, but also very much at the airport now. And definitely the role of low-cost carriers on longer international routes seems to be evolving. That's a space to watch.
So these announcements, they really are more than just headlines. They give us a real peek into the planning and investment going on constantly.
They really do. And it makes you think, doesn't it? How will all these individual moves by airlines combine to reshape the global network? What choices will you have as a traveler in, say, 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, and what other routes or regions might be next?
Yeah.
Where else could we see this kind of activity?
It's a constantly changing map. The world of aviation never stands still.
Definitely keeps things interesting. Well, until our next deep dive, keep looking up.